Today is the end of lockdown. At least it's the end of the type of lockdown we've had so far, where we had to get permission from the government to leave our houses. So I'm able to leave my house with my car and go for a ride without giving any explanation to anybody. Now this video, however, is about the MSS springs. They are installed now on the car for around 800 kilometers. And I want to take the car. This is the first time I'm going to take the car out and actually test the car, you know, a little bit more sporty or spirited driving with the springs, and see if they've made any difference. Right now the stance is quite raked. I mean, it's not really noticeable from the outside. You got to really pay attention. Inside the car, it's not really visible. I don't feel as if I'm leaning forward at all or anything like that. And it has to be at least 5 millimeters per the OEM. 14 inches or 35 and a half. 34.5. 14 inches or 35 and a half. 34.5. 14.25 inches or 36 centimeters. 35.5. 14 inches or 35 and a half centimeters. So a couple of points before I go do my testing and I have my Draggy box and everything, is that I have adaptive suspension, and there were compatibility issues with adaptive suspension. The PU seats that came with the kit, those are the things that go under the springs in the front. They were not compatible with adaptive suspension. There is a later standard of PU seat, and that was shipped to me free of charge from the UK with DHL, so I appreciate that.
That's how we put it together, just to see how it fit. Obviously it didn't fit properly. Yeah, this is yours. There's that piece there.
Watching somebody's intestines out.
There's that piece there, which is going to be regarding bump stop wise. We've got a choice of two, your one and the other one.
Different sizes.
There is a difference in size, but I'm going to work it out. Right, see that plastic there?
No.
Now I took that off to see, because in their diagram you take this metal piece off here and put their top on there. Obviously it doesn't fit because your socket was physically wider. That piece there, that plastic, it actually fits nicely in here and stops it from moving anyway. So I'm pretty happy with that side of it. That's the bit that doesn't fit. There, I couldn't get those to fit. Those rubbers, they would not fit in there because the height was different. So hopefully that should fit now, and we should be good to go.
There were incompatibilities with the plastic that sits under the bump stop that could not be addressed. So yeah, let me give you my first impressions about the MSS springs. The ride is definitely harsher. Going over speed bumps is harsher. It's not as comfortable as it was in comfort mode. So all the driving done since the installation has been very mild driving. I haven't pushed the car at all until I, bedded in the springs as recommended by the manufacturer. I didn't want to push the car before reaching 800 kilometers or 500 miles. Well, now we've reached 500 miles. I think we can put the car into Sport Plus mode, gearbox to sport, and just see how the car is now. I don't know how other people test these cars straight after installing the MSS springs, because they need 800 kilometers of running in, essentially. Okay, definitely installing the springs and lowering the front has given it a more aggressive, more sporty stance. So aesthetically, definitely see the improvement in the stance externally. demon this car is, goddamn. But to be honest, so far I'm not detecting a lot of difference. You know, I don't feel as if the car is so much more planted than it used to be or anything like that. Granted, the lowering is very minor, very modest, but at the same time, you know, these are supposed to be more high performance springs compared to what I had installed before, which was the OEM and performance springs. The difference is minimal. Okay, Draggy is downloading maps. 3, 2, 1. Ah, 4.6 seconds. Not very good. Okay, attempt number 2. .58 seconds. .69 seconds with a launch. Actually, these are pretty bad. A little bit disappointed. Hopefully tomorrow we'll get it a little bit lower in the back, and I'll film how you change the height, and we'll be able to do some tests again after the wheel alignment.
1 week later.
Since last week, and it's been a week since the last video, I've gone back to the guys who installed the MSS springs, and we've lowered the car just a tiny little bit more in the back. It doesn't seem to be possible to lower it anymore, so it seems there is some incompatibility between the MSS springs and the adaptive suspension. The guy told me he had to cut the rear seats to accommodate the spring. He said he trimmed it a little bit, so there you go. That's an indication that these springs are not made for the adaptive suspension on the M140i. The other thing I've done, of course, because I reached the 800 kilometers, I've done a wheel alignment. The wheels are now aligned, and that was necessary when you've changed the ride height. Per the MSS springs instructions, you should wait 800 kilometers or 500 miles. But I've used the car for a week, so I've got less fuel, so that probably means I am a little bit lighter than last week. Last but not least, I've reduced the tire pressure in the rear tires. So whereas before we had same tire pressure on all 4 tires, now the rear tires are with less pressure. Last week we were getting consistently 4.6 seconds. It's about the same temperature tonight, 22 degrees. Let's see what difference it all makes. We got 4.5 seconds verified. I think I can do better than that.
A few moments later.
So I did 3 runs. All of them were around 4.55 seconds. We seem to have lost a little bit of our performance compared to before, where I got down to 4.2 seconds. I don't know what that's all about. It doesn't feel like I'm struggling for grip at this point. The main conclusion is the MSS springs did not improve performance of the car in terms of straight line acceleration. I can't say that I'm so impressed with them, generally speaking. All I've done really is lower the front of the car. That's how I feel about it. I've lowered the front of the car, and it's only been an aesthetic mod. Perhaps this isn't sufficient data to draw conclusions 100%, but there you go.